Good morning, Senior Pride here. This morning I am going to discuss the intersection of lifelong disability and aging. And although many people might not think about this, it actually is an issue. For those of us who have had disabilities all or most of our lives and have to kind of work with that with our aging process. Now, it's important to note that this is very much an underserved and ignored community in anywhere that I could find information on. The research is minimal, and that which exists tends to focus primarily on cognitive disabilities such as Down syndrome. Of course, I have my personal experience to speak from, but it's important to recognize that it varies from person to person. It not only depends on personal experiences and disabilities, it depends on a myriad of social, environmental, and genetic factors. What we do know is that those factors intersect to affect each other. Now, in Canada, as of 2021, 16.5% of persons with disabilities lived in poverty, which is twice the national average. Close to 50% of persons with disabilities living alone lived in poverty, and this is according to Disability Without Poverty, and I will be providing their internet access information in the comments. Those who live in poverty are on average about 30% below the poverty line here in Canada. And given that provincial governments impose strict conditions on what happens to your support if you engage in an intimate relationship, move in with someone, basically, persons with disabilities really are forced to live alone, at least in Canada, because by not doing so, we suffer the consequences even more. It is also important to note that over 50% of Canadians have reported at least one unmet need for an aid, an item. So that can be like a white cane, pain management, it can be a wheelchair, it can be hearing aids, it can be so many things. It can be communication access for someone with autism who is nonverbal, basic things that we need to interact with our environment, we need to move around. It's also reported by about 3/4 of those people that cost was the reason for this unmet need. So the money just isn't there. Now, interestingly, in Canada, none of the provinces and territories support people with disabilities who are unable to work above the poverty line. We are all significantly below the poverty line. Alberta has the quote-unquote highest income, and we are still very far below the poverty line. And there are other needs that are not being met. When I talk to friends in Ontario, they have access to other supports that we just don't. So that being said, how does all of this affect aging? Well, think about it this way, if you have dangerous or unmet housing needs, unmet medical needs, can't afford nutritious food, can't afford adequate transportation, have no access to pain management, etc., are completely isolated, imagine how that would affect your body, your mind, and your cognition. And imagine how that would impact you as you age. It's interesting to note that several provinces in Canada are now eroding their health systems, and senior care and care for persons with disabilities we are becoming increasingly vulnerable. We are receiving less and less support, less and less care, and there are more and more unmet needs. And for those of us who have these complex needs, who have this intersection of disability and aging, the support just isn't there. So those of us with lifelong disabilities, simply put, we are being ignored. Unfortunately, as individuals age, our life histories, our experience are simply ignored in favor of just presuming that all issues are age-related. So even to obtain inadequate medical care, we're often forced to accept the denial of our truth, our life experiences, and simply accept the lies perpetrated by healthcare providers and support services. Imagine having to deny your own medical or physical or emotional condition to obtain any semblance of assistance for changes in your chronic conditions and just let them go and call everything age-related. Treatment in that case will be inadequate, it will be ineffective. So I'm going to give an example of an inability to adequately provide medical and social services, and it's best known in regard to Down syndrome or trisomy 21. Although for a long time we've understood that individuals with trisomy 21 are at greater risk of early onset dementia, it's only recently that people have begun to speak up, and that's because of the access to the internet, and say that this outcome is not inevitable. The other thing is that support services they simply don't accept that they can aid in slowing the process of dementia and supporting the person to have a healthy and happy life. And so they don't reduce the burden. They just don't, they're not there. And now, for me personally, as a person with severe learning disabilities, vision and hearing impairments, and other issues, I have learned that if I speak out about my learning disabilities and speak of how they're affecting me, I will either be ignored or dismissed as suffering from dementia. Everyone simply assumes that my sensory impairments, my vision and hearing impairments, are age-related. In fact, my hearing loss is age-related. It started in my late 40s. My vision disability is not. I have always had issues with my vision. It got progressively worse until I was in my early 30s and had to start using supports like the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, which has many names. I've also experienced severe spinal problems since I was a teenager, and they were never properly treated because, well, adolescents don't have pain. Now they act like it's simply an inevitable part of aging, and the only way I can get any support is to simply go with the lie. Pretend that I don't have a lifetime of experience that means this may not be entirely age-related, but that there's, again, that intersection between age and lifelong disability. Unfortunately, what I experience is very much the norm for persons with disabilities. I encourage research into this intersection, into the relationship between lifelong disability and aging. Important to this is an honest discussion with older adults about their life experiences with disability and how their health is impacted by aging. What happens? Our insight into our lived experiences offer an opportunity for healthcare and allied professionals to provide comprehensive care. So please, don't assume, don't ignore, ask. We're very good at talking about what we need if you ask, and we will tell you the truth if you're open to it. With that, I say, if you enjoyed this post, please hit subscribe and explore. If you know someone that may benefit or may enjoy these postings, please share with them. And remember, to be senior is to be proud. Hugs!